we bring in a friend who we've known for years and years and years. He's an author, relationship therapist, Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson.
Some expert advice on how we can all talk to them. Joining us now is relationship expert Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson. She's the author of Courageous Conversations Connect. Good morning, R.G.
Doctor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Janelle. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And as we mentioned, a lot of people just dealing with anxiety during all of this. What are your suggestions?
Some of the things that we need to remember is that this is temporary. This is temporary inconvenience for long-term gain. And as long as we stay healthy, Janelle, then everything else is recoverable.
Talk to your children about what's happening right now. What are the best ways to do that?
There's some do's and don'ts, right? So you want to tell them that you're going to be here. We're going to be okay. Kids want to know that they're secure and they're safe. So predictability, structure, and consistency. You also want to let them know you have a plan. And even if you don't have a plan, tell them that you're working on one.
Ooh, I think my thing was down. Okay. Good morning. This is Dr. R.G. here. Yours truly. Welcome to Courageous Conversations Connect, where we are having our quarantine talks. This is our community give back here. And this is, quite frankly, our 12th week in quarantine. Okay. When Cherri comes on, I think I might have to take it out. So this is our 12th week in quarantine, and this is, I believe, day 53 of it. So, hey, Megan. Hey, Charla. Good morning. Thanks for joining. Do me a favor and tag a friend. Share this post with other persons. Good morning, IG family. Welcome to the Courageous Conversations Connect space where we're having quarantine talks. Good morning, Facebook family. Good morning, YouTube family. Listen. I am very, very excited that we are having a special guest who has been on the front lines at ground zero. Her name is Cherri Gregg. She is my good friend. She's been here in Philadelphia doing the darn thing and reporting. She's an amazing journalist, and she brings it to you real. So we're going to be talking to her specifically today about, of course, all week it's emotional healing talks. But we're talking today about what's your protest and are they listening now? What's your protest? Please tell me in the chat as we move forward, what are you protesting? Because we need to talk about the difference between protest and riots as well as looting. There's a big difference between all of that. Listen, stay with us. We're going to have a great show today. We're going to take a quick break from our sponsors. We're going to come right back. Don't go anywhere. After the video cameras are over. Hey, good morning. This is Dr. RG here. I am your host for this show, Courageous Conversations Connect Space, Quarantine Talks. And listen, we got a show for you today. We are specifically talking about what's your protest? Tell me in the chat. First, tag a friend, share this post. This is a way that we, our crew, connecting relationships for epic wins. It's a way for us to create a safe space for us to process. Remember early on when we said our mantra was that we can turn pain into power if we appreciate the process. Well, this is our process. We're hurting, many of us. I don't know if you saw a segment I did this morning on CBS. They're specifically talking about how do we talk about these things that are so painful in our past and our present, and even the uncertainty of our future. We're dealing with two viruses. One is COVID-19 and the other is racism, right? And we've been dealing with racism long before we started dealing with COVID-19. Unfortunately, there's probably going to be an uptick because, of course, what I'm seeing, and I don't know what you all are seeing, there's not a whole lot of social distancing going on out there. But y'all, the other thing is that, when we think about the concept of protesting, it's getting conflated because we see lots of different images. And that's why I'm asking for us to highlight what your protest is, because the protests and the riots, if they are the language of the unheard, then there is a way in which protest has been a tipping point for many of us. It's been a watershed moment back in the civil rights movement. I heard our former Commissioner Ramsey, who talked about the fact that he would not have been in the position that he has been able to excel to, or elevate to, if you will, if there wasn't the civil rights. My father, of course, would not have become a homicide detective during the Rizzo era, although I hear that they took that statue down. Did you all hear that? That they finally took the Frank Rizzo statue down, right? Okay, so let me explain a little bit about that statue. That statue of Frank Rizzo represents a lot of the inequities, a lot of the structural and institutionalized racism that occurred here in the city of Philadelphia, that's supposed to be the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. And my father, back in the 1970s, was a homicide detective, a police officer first, and then a homicide detective during the Rizzo era. And I said yesterday, or a few days ago, that I now recognize as an adult the pain, the anguish, the disappointment, the frustration that he had to go through working in an unjust environment where people thought that he was subhuman, that he was not to be on the same level as his white brothers at the time, because there were very few police officers that were female. And subsequently, he had to stuff a lot of his emotions because he was dealing with the racism outside the badge, the blue shield, if you will. And then he was dealing with the racism on the inside. And Frank Rizzo, he stoked a lot of that inequity and a lot of those messages around difference and around institutionalized and structural racism, if you will. And so now they, I think this past weekend, they vandalized that statue, and there was a call to take that statue down. Why now? Think about it. Why now? That statue has been up for years. Sure, Morgan's going to give some context.
So just give you some history on who Frank Rizzo was and what he represents. He was pretty much a bully type police officer. One of his trademarks, very similar to leadership we have right now in the presidency, one of his trademarks is that he would wear 6-gun shooter with pearl handle guns on both sides of his hip, like he was going in to have a
Oh, excuse me, Morgan. Did you send Cherri the link?
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, like he's going to a gunfight, in a wild, wild west. I mean, he was like, bust him in the head type persons. I mean, he did one of the infamous things. You can look this up and Google this. When the Black Panther Party was heavily in all over the country. Bobby Seals is from Philadelphia, actually here, but he rounded up one of the things that went viral back in the day when newspapers were all the rage at that time. We Catch Your News. He rounded up all the Black Panthers and lined them up on the wall, had them stripped down butt naked, had dogs and stuff right around. So he was like the Bull Connor of Philadelphia. Then he later became police commissioner, and then he became the mayor of the city, and he was just a symbol of division here in the city. That's what he represents. So they erected a statue, and to your point, Art, they were actually Mayor Kinney actually had it scheduled to take the statue down later on this summer, if not the 1st September. But because of all this happening right now, he just ramped up the time. It was such a divisive symbol, and that's why it had to come down. So that's why he did it right away. That's it. Give you some Philadelphia history on Mayor Rizzo. Frank Rizzo.
It's a lot. So listen. So here's the deal. We are about to bring on my sister girlfriend. I call everybody that I feel like is doing some great things out there, my sister friend. We're about to bring her on, and we are going to continue to talk about what we're protesting. Everybody has, we'd like people within our platform to share what their protest is, because there are multiple ways to protest. And we're going to bring on Cherri, Gregg, who's been at ground zero for the last few days to get really the real deal. She has a show called Real Talk with Cherri, and we're going to get the real deal about what's going on with these protests and the difference between protests and looters and rioters, and then really unpack this, why people are so angry, why many people of color and Black people feel that the protests in many ways have been hijacked by white supremacist and nationalist groups, and what we can do about that. So we're going to have her come on so that she can do our breathing exercise as well. Hopefully she's already doing her meditation, because I know that she does her own therapy and, doing things to take care of herself. She's got to do that in order to be on the ground level, on the ground level and grassroots organizing as a journalist. So as we bring her on, we want everyone to welcome her, and we also want to share in the chat who you're breathing for and what your protest is. All right? Yeah. Without further ado, we want to introduce Cherri Gregg.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey,
I'm like, there we go. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Hey, Cherri, how you doing, sweetie? How you doing?
I'm good.
Okay.
It's funny. I just had my therapy this morning because I had to do an appointment, because it's a lot. Like it's been a lot in over the past few days, and I closed my eyes and I still see it. So I was like, I need help. I need some help processing.
Got it. Yeah. Glad to have you on this morning, though.
Mm-hmm. And I think your mic is
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
When Morgan went out, then it muted me again for some reason. I have to pay attention to that. You can hear me, right?
Yep. Okay. I saw it in the comments. They were like, "You can't hear Dr. Argy."
All right. So what I was saying is that, you've been in my heart and my spirit, because you've been doing the darn thing. You've been on the front lines. And I know that that many people haven't really talked a lot about, even during COVID-19, during the pandemic. I didn't hear a lot of people talking about journalists, that for those of you who are out there on the front lines, you are experiencing vicarious trauma as well. We saw quite a few people during the process of the pandemic when the numbers were going up in terms of the deaths. And I saw your voices quivering. I saw, that glaze over your eyes, like you had started seeing way too much, and that you still have to stay in the fight because your job. And I heard you the other day, you were like, this is what we do. This is, and everybody's saying, be careful. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to keep my head on swivel, but this is what we do. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. My pleasure. I mean, I just want to say, for folks who don't understand, journalists are first responders, and we should be treated as such. And a lot of people give respect to police, firefighters, and EMTs and others, but we're on the front lines. We're the witnesses to make sure that police brutality doesn't happen, to make sure everybody's doing the job that they're supposed to do, and we write the first drafts of history. And so I just, I really want people to understand and respect, because people have been treating journalists so bad for so long, saying, oh, the media. But it's the media right now that's keeping it real, and that's on the front lines, and we're trying our best, and we're people too, and we've been attacked. I had tear gas. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's real. It's realer than real.
Yeah. Well, thank you. One, for you, we stand in solidarity with you. You are the first storytellers. You are sharing the stories of what is going on in the streets. And you are sort of creating a picture for us of what's fact versus what's fiction. If there wasn't for you in Philadelphia, many of us would not have really known what was specifically going on within certain communities, because sometimes the national news may not necessarily be available to speak to what's really happening at the ground level.
So I want to do this. So we do our breathing exercise. So are you down with it, Cherri?
I'm down. I love to breathe. I like to be able to say I can breathe, you know, when people are saying just the opposite. So anytime we can take that life-sustaining breath, I am all for it.
Yes, yes. All right. So what we do is we say in the chat who we're breathing for. This week, I'm breathing for the family of George Floyd, of Ahmaud Arbery, and of Breonna Taylor, as well as all of those essential workers that are out there, including yourself on the front lines. That's who I'm breathing for. Who are you breathing for?
I'm breathing for all the youth who are filled with rage and who feel that this is the only way that they can get change. I breathe for their peace, and I breathe for them finding another way to channel that pain.
Thank you. Gotcha. And Vicki says that, this is who we'll read that in a minute. Yeah. So what we do is we put our middle finger on our thumbs, or hands on each other and on our laps or by your side. We kind of relax a little bit, and at the sound of my voice, when I count to 3, we're going to breathe in through our nose, and then we're going to breathe out through our mouth. We're going to hold it for 8 seconds in honor of George Floyd. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. One last time, make it count. Breathe in. And breathe out. That felt good, right?
I woke up with yes. I feel like it went away a little bit.
We got it. The oxygen, we felt like we were experiencing all over again Eric Garner when we heard George Floyd say, "I can't breathe." And the truth is, for many of us, we have shallow breath because we have so much stress inside of us. We don't take time to bring oxygen into our bodies. And our bodies, oxygen is essential. Go to our main organs. This is sometimes why we get migraine headaches and why we have digestive issues. We're not bringing in the oxygen to our bodies, and we're not bringing in all of those good vibes, the affirmations, serenity and peace and calmness, and exhaling worry and fear and anxiety. And many people, I've been on the phone with with clients all morning, having pent up anxiety and not knowing what to do with it. And so this is a process. Please, for everyone, tag a friend, share, let other people know we're on this platform, and we're here with Cherri Gregg, that is an amazing journalist with KYW and does Real Talks with Cherri every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday night at 8 o'clock. So you got to check it out. Vicki says, "I protest for freedom and peace. I protect my 11-year-old grandson and godchild, whom are young Black men or Black in a season that we are in right now." So that speaks really to, and Angelique says, I'm protesting so that white people can see all the anguish that we've been dealing with and use their abilities to act against hate. 2 young people protecting or protesting for young people. It speaks to who you said that you were breathing for. Let's talk about that, Cherri. What are you seeing with these young people on the front lines?
Well, I feel like I was in a bubble. And I mean, I'm a Black woman, but I'm a privileged Black woman. I went to Howard Law School. I have a master's degree in journalism. Yeah. Mm-hmm. My mom loved me. We were poor. We grew up in the hood. But my mom had 3 jobs, but we lived nice. Anything that I needed, I had. I went to an excellent school. was able to get a full scholarship to an elite college. So I grew up, no brothers in my family, they all alive and fathers and married, you know. And so I did not see some of the things that these young people who are on the front lines have seen. And so I've been living in this bubble of privilege in some ways and reporting in a bubble. And then for some reason, I was able to pierce it in some stories that I did. But when I tell you that the blinders are off now, after talking to some of these young people in West Philadelphia and seeing the pain that they had, and I asked myself, what kind of circumstances would I have to live in to where not just me, but massive numbers of youth believe that the only way that they will be heard is to burn this place down. We used to hear the song, burn, all this stuff. I mean, from the 70s. But I feel like in the late 80s, 90s, if you came of age during that period, you did not necessarily protest. It wasn't something that was ingrained inside of me. I was in college and things like that. And so these kids, you got to remember, some of these kids was 10 years old when Trayvon Martin was killed by George Zimmerman. It was 10, 8, 9, and the shade was lifted for them as children. And so for them, they looking at somebody that could be their older brother or them killed by a white guy, even though he was Hispanic, killed by a white looking man. And they're watching.
He considered himself to be white.
Yeah, he considered himself to be white. So they see this, they see the way the justice system works, and that this guy got off for murdering this kid holding a bottle of Skittles. Okay. So they see that. And then they see Tamir Rice, who was 12 years old in Chicago, playing with a toy gun, the same type of toy gun they play with, murdered by police. And I say murder because I know we get controversial as journalists labeling things when someone has not been convicted. But I also am I wear a t-shirt that says a quote by Thurgood Marshall that says, do what you think is right and let the law catch up. Because a lot of the stuff that Thurgood Marshall do, and he's a Howard Law grad, was considered illegal. You know, those 4 little girls, you know, when you try to go to a segregated, you try to sit at a segregated kennel, that was illegal. That was an act of civil disobedience. Right. They were breaking laws.
Right.
Okay? And that's why they were arrested for Rosa Parks was arrested because it was illegal for her to be on that bus that way.
Right. That's right.
People don't realize that these people were breaking laws. We look back and be like, oh, this is not legal. No, that was illegal then. And so what they're doing now, I had to recalibrate my whole thought process. Because I was tweeting, don't loot, vote. And I'm like, you know what? How am I to tell them what to do and not do? I still do not believe looting is right. But I had to put myself in a mindset of saying, what kind of situation would I have to feel that I was in where I thought that was my only option? And you got to understand, they believe, and it's multiple elements here. I just want to mention that there's protesters who are peaceful.
That's what I wanted you to get.
There are individuals who are rioting, who in protest. So you're rioting in protest. You're saying, I'm burning this thing down because these cops suck. So I'm gonna light this stuff on fire. That's a form of that. They're rioting as a protest.
As a protest. There's many ways to protest. Right?
There's people down there that just be like, yo, there's free sneakers on 52nd Street. I'm getting free sneakers. And then there's these white folks that I've seen who are starting stuff. They got
like the nationalists or something. They're calling them
they are. And I refuse, and I've reported on it. I talked to witnesses who've seen them in parts of the town that they don't necessarily fit in. They stand out like sore thumbs. Some of them have been spotted across the country dropping bricks off in neighborhoods.
Now, by the way, Are we carrying bricks on the bus somewhere and putting them in front of windows? Tell me what young Black person is carrying some bricks around in their bags on the bus or wherever and putting them in front of stores?
And people were giving out pipes and baseball bats to kids, handing them out. I talked to, and I reported on this. There was a pastor I spoke to who witnessed one of these individuals light a fire in West Philly. She reported it to police. I saw them myself when I was there and got one or two of them on tape, screenshotted it. I want to tweet it. Backpacks full of spray painting Black Lives Matter, I for I, George Floyd, all over Center City.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I asked them, where are you from? You from Philly? Where are you from? You ain't from here. And they put the mask on and walk away. You know what I mean? All of them are masked up. You don't know. You can just tell because they all wear the same kind of outfit.
Yeah, they have like black on, and they have like these little bags on their backs, or they have a hood, and I've noticed that the white women specifically are these little petite white women, but it feels like they have a little bit of an accent.
I don't know who they are. I've not spoken to one. I have some on video. I witnessed a woman from West Philadelphia yelling at a group of them because they're not talking to the people who live there.
Right.
It's almost like they're aliens and dropped into the middle of an urban community. And when I was in West Philly, they had gallons of milk, almost like they knew tear gas was going to be thrown. All the stores are closed. I'm like, how you come over here to West Philly with some gallons of milk? And it was just very strange to me. And I've reported on this, and I just don't know what this is. But I'm not saying that these kids is robbing and whatever. I won't say robbing because robbing requires an act of threatening force. They have not used any form of force. And I want to be clear because I don't want the narrative to be that these kids are violent towards people such that people feel justified on trying to kill them.
Right.
They are not violent. And I did a report yesterday that says they broke into this lady's house. She said, what are y'all doing here? They said, ma'am, I'm so sorry. My apologies to you. Go back in the house. We didn't know you was here. Go next door, rob them. Like break in and burglarize that location. So I just want to make it clear. I never once felt that my physical body was threatened. Okay.
That's really good for you to share, because I do think, like, for example, this morning when I watched the news with the two students, one from Spelman and one from Morehouse, that were sitting in the car in Atlanta and they tased them. Those officers have been fired at this point by the mayor. That said, I want you to speak to the terror that these young people who are putting their lives on the line, many of them who are not looting, they are having peaceful protests, yet they're still under assault, and they're being courageous as well. That act of courage takes a lot to go out there and put themselves on the line, not knowing who in that group is for them or against them.
And that's why I'm going to be a part of a Know Your Rights town hall next week, where all the Black lawyers are getting together. And as you guys know, I'm also a lawyer. And so we're all getting together to really explain to people what their rights are, because, you know, a lot of it comes from not knowing, you know what I mean? Like not knowing what you can and can't do. And sort of crossing lines. Because a lot of people, you got to remember, in the 60s, they were trained to be demonstrators. They knew what the pressure points were. You have a lot of kids that's just showing up, protesting, don't really know how to protest, and it's a skill. And so I feel like, number one, educate yourself on what you're doing. Like, know your rights when you go out there and things like that. And a lot of these kids, they don't know. And so they get caught up in a bigger, massive situation. But I do feel bad. There is a lot of terror. And I think number one, the police were not ready for this. The police are exhausted, because you got to remember, the cops, it's all hands on deck. They called me in on my day off, and they never call me in. I'm a Friday person. I'm working 1 a.m. on a Saturday night. What? You know what I'm saying? By myself, with fires and bombs dropping. I mean, like, you gotta.
I was really concerned when it got dark for you. I was
Look,
very.
like I said, my physical body. I mean, I probably felt like if something blew up, then that would probably be it. But I never felt like somebody was gonna hurt me. But these cops, you know, some of them, they don't know how to handle this. This has never been done before. People expect them to know. They don't know who's who, because like I just told you, there's multiple elements involved in here. And, you know, some of the kids who are looting, who are not part of the protest, are mixing in and trying to get away. You know, so you got all kinds of elements, and they don't know who's who. They just see a bunch of people going buck wild under a certain age. They're not cracking older people.
Right.
I don't think they're going to crack me. They like, she probably ain't one of these protesters. You know what I'm saying? But all the young people, they don't know who's who, because there's so many, like I said, there's so many different elements all intermixing at the same time. At the same time, it does not make sense to do that to these young folk. All it does is underscore and make their point. It screams their point, because they're being terrorized. And I've heard all kinds of stories here in Philadelphia, Dr. RG. I mean, like, kids going home, they didn't know when you know, because they keep changing the
curfew time.
How you supposed to know?
Right, because they're out there, so they don't know. You know, they're probably not checking their phone every minute. So I get that. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to take a break from our sponsors. We're going to come right back, and I want to talk about tipping point, right? Because Malcolm Gladwell talks about tipping point. I want to understand that from your perspective, what you feel like the tipping point is, the turning point, and if you think some good is going to come out of it. Will you stay with me?
Yeah.
All right. Good. All right, so we are back with the Courageous Conversations Connect space and our quarantine talks. And we have my friend, my sister girl, Cherri Gregg, on the front lines. She is an amazing journalist out there. She is not scared. We're more scared, I think, than she is being out there on the front lines. And we're talking, and if you all have questions for Cherri, please ask those in the chat, as it relates to what she's seeing on the front lines, what she is experiencing as well. I want to know, Cherri, with regards to this tipping point, right? Tipping point meaning what, or turning point? Malcolm Gladwell talked about that this happens when people have had enough of something, right? What do you feel like is going to be the fallout of this? And what will happen, do you think, when all the cameras do go away?
First of all, I think it's going to continue for a little while. I don't think it's going to go away, because I think it's been a buildup. And I think that video of George Floyd having a knee on his neck was so triggering for so many people of all races, of all socioeconomic statuses, that I think that was a tipping point. And I'm surprised it wasn't something that happened previously. I just think that we were all home, you know, because we got to remember, this was a unique situation, because how would you have the whole country on pause?
Like perfect storm, right?
Yes, we were all on pause, you know, and everybody was home, way more people than normally would have been home. And so they got time to protest. Everything shut down. Half the business is not open. They mad because they broke. They haven't been able to make any money. So you got a lot of pent up emotions here. And it just made for the perfect storm, as you mentioned, Dr. RG, to where this could be the moment. They had the time, they had the availability, and their attention was focused on this. And so I definitely think the silver lining is that it woke up, this one incident woke up a lot of people who've been living in a bubble. And I won't just say it's white people that's waking up, because it's Black people who are older, my generation even, that we didn't realize how people in that Z generation were viewing the world.
Mm.
And,
Mhm.
they had, I had no idea that. But once you explain it to me, I understand. You saw Trayvon Martin get killed at 10. If I saw that at 10, how would I be right now?
Right.
Maybe I
Mhm.
had a slash on my cheek and I'd be like Sarah Connor from, Terminator. You don't know.
Mhm.
And that's a joke. I got to add some levity to this.
Mhm.
But you don't know who would Dr. RG be if you were influenced in that way?
Right.
Such a traumatic way at such a formative part of your adolescence. Fast forward to now, would you maybe you be doing the exact same thing, but maybe it would be like, so I get what they're saying. And I think that is something that is step one for like us to understand them. And then we got to make sure that the people, the powers that be, hear us too. And we have to amplify their voices in a constructive way so that it calms this thing down. Because they're not going to calm down until they feel like they're heard. And it's up to us to do that. And I feel like my personal job is to amplify the correct narrative and to not let it go left. And to let people know these kids are not trying to hurt individual people. They are upset. They want this police brutality to stop. And now is the time. We got time. We're sitting here. And I think, I got to make one point. People have been trying to get that Rizzo statue removed for years. Protests, petitions.
Right.
Thousands of people signed a petition, giving it to Mayor Jim Kenney saying, look, we want you to remove this statue. Nothing happened. But they burned down Center City. It's gone. They were able to remove it. It just seemed like, y'all was able to just pull a crane
Just
out.
like that. Just like that.
Yeah, it's gone. So what does that tell these young people? What does that tell them?
Mm.
Silent, being nice and everything and filling out protests and asking nicely and asking for meetings doesn't work. That's what it tells them. And so we need to change the narrative. It's up to the leadership to say, y'all ain't got to do this for us to hear you.
Right. Right. Right.
I'm gonna sit down with you right now and you got my attention. I will listen to you from now on. That is up to the leadership now to not just say that, but to make them believe it by taking action and steps to make this thing right.
Right.
I still think there's a contingent of leadership that is not ready for that. They just feel like, we're going to crack you back down into the thing. And until those people are convinced, I think this is going to continue. And I do not condone any violence against property or person at all. And so I want to make that clear. I do not condone it. I'm just explaining to you.
Yeah, we have to understand why. Give the sirens right there. We have to understand why in order to understand how we move forward, right? Then DeCosta says, good morning, my dear friend. Thanks, Cherri Craig, for all that you do. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. So action, right? Mm-hmm. So, and the trauma, right? So last night we talked about trauma on my friend Charlie Luce's show, and trauma is real for all of us. It's interesting. I just had a conversation this morning. I try to do my mindfulness, so I'm outside watering flowers, talking to my neighbor, Mr. Morris, who always drops some wisdom. He's 78 years young, and he's a veteran. And as I talk to people, and then my sort of play dad, Ernest, called me to check on me this morning. So I talked to quite a few people this morning. I've been up really, really early. The older generation, we need to bridge the gap. The older generation seems a little bit different. Like I hear common threads like, this is not new. We need to strategize. We need to listen. Then we need to act. But it's something in their emotional state that seems way more calm. Have you talked to older people out there and detected a difference in the way in which they approach it? And have you tapped into whether or not there's a gap that's being bridged in the demographic?
There's a total gap, and I have an example that's illustrative. There was a block captain in West Philly off of 52nd and Market. She grabbed a young person who was, and I key demographic, I would say between 14 and 24, and of the age of group that is primarily involved in this. And why would you do this? And they're yelling back. I mean, he's like, because they're not listening. And I mean, you literally hear his pain. And I do think that we got to remember that we were them at one point. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they don't know what to do. All they know is that they continuously see. And it's different because we didn't see people get murdered or killed or shot or choked to death or knee on
Need
the
to death.
We did not see this. We heard about it, but like, what? Rodney King got shot? Oh, Rodney King video was like unheard of. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We got this video. Like, but now they have video after video after stuff, and they see stuff that even didn't go viral.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of little videos floating around that they've been watching and seeing, and so their minds are different than ours, who you had to literally be like I was on the front lines to see it. Now, y'all all saw it because social media exists, right? So you were like, you could see everything. But think about how it was 10 years ago. Would you have been able to do that? Would you know so close up what was happening? You were in, people watched, you were inside of a looted out building.
Right.
Inside. That's where I was. You was there. That stuff that's how they live. They're in it in a way that we weren't in it. And so I think that's the difference. That's why their emotions are so much on fire, and why you see people who are older with a more flat line. And I also think that once you've been in the game for a long time, you get tired. You know,
that's what Mr. said. He's like, I'm tired.
They tired, man. It's like they've been in this struggle for decades. And they get the frustrated. They're like, look, man, you gonna have all this fire today, but 10 years from now, you know how I feel. But yeah, but I think.
And they also know that people walk away once the cameras are gone. So they want to see sustainable change, not just in the police department across the country, but in every institution, because we know that it's not just on the ground level where these kids are being, or these Black people are being assassinated. It's also the internalized and psychological assassination of people's spirits in the C-suites. So whether you're on the streets or the C-suites, you still have an assassination of your spirit with regards to this inequity.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. And the things that we have to do in order to stay in these positions, and it's just a lot, Dr. RG. And I feel for a lot of, but I do think our generations can come together. I do think that having conversations among generations, and I think also giving young people space and listening to their POV, like their points of view are valid. And maybe just maybe we don't know what we're talking about. Because we tried certain techniques. We tried the petition writing. We tried this, we tried that. At the same time, we don't want them to become a criminal element before they're able to even become who they're really meant to be.
Oh, yeah.
To end up back in the criminal justice system after decades. And I've been on the front lines of that too, trying to decarcerate America. We just got to a point where we reduced the prison population, and we were almost at a point where it was literally like, okay, we're getting all these people out. Like, yes, we're going to be able to really see change. The economy's doing great. To now we got a pandemic, and then boom, riots, and our kids are involved in criminal activity to the point where we can fill the jails back up again, and it gives the powers that be an excuse,
right,
to criminalize our children, to shoot our children.
Yeah. So there's another.
That's what we don't want. And that's why the action is to force leadership to listen and to take action so that we can quiet this unrest.
Yeah. I love that. We've got some questions for you. Gail Logan, Dr. Gail says, hello, Cherri, Gregg. I'm wondering about your thoughts on under the circumstances involving that police officer killing the citizens could step in and assert a citizen's arrest, which could have saved a life. I do understand it would be a risky act, but any intervention to get the attention that he was killing someone. I'm not really sure if I understand the statement.
And I've had this debate online. A lot of people have said to me, and I got into a debate with someone, one of my good friends from law school, and he has 4 sons, and he said, Cherri, I swear that I felt like those bystanders who were videotaping things should have grabbed that police officer, should have tackled him, and should have stopped this murder.
And then murdered themselves.
He said that he felt like they should have done it. And he said, look, I have 4 sons, and I hope that somebody would have stepped in for my son. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. This would have been a massacre on another level.
Yes.
And hey, what's up, Morgan? Morgan said, I got to get up in there.
I got to get some of this.
The brother was upset. And I was like, bruh, you can't. I was like, look, if we do this, you got to think about it. There's going to be, they're going to say, I was threatened. Guns will be blazing, and I got into an argument with somebody on Twitter because I said, a lot of people in West Philly wanted to do to those looters what the folks in South Philly are doing. Have their guns, have their bats, and be ready to say, you come in this business, I'm going to clock you. But and they pointed to something out, and I had to defer. This was a young millennial. And he said, really? If we did that, do you think we wouldn't have gotten shot?
We would have been dead.
And that's the difference, sis. That's what I'm saying, sis. It's not that, you could try to make a citizen's arrest, but I talked to Ben Crump, on Real Talk, and he was like, you think we could roll up the people and be doing a citizen's arrest?
That's not the world that we live in.
Yeah, see, that's
not the world we live in.
That's a challenge, and this.
Let's think it through. Think it through.
Me? I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, it's a struggle because you want to say that you can protect your neighborhood the way they're protecting the neighborhood, but again, it's different for us. It would have been a riot. There would not have been any distinction between, this is a good guy, a bad guy, or whatever it may be. Everybody would have been mowed down and shot down like dogs. That's how they think about us, for real. And if anybody had stepped in on that police officer, again, it would have been holy hell, and then it would have been no excuse at all. Mr. Floyd's death would have been in vain, in essence, because at this point, even though we might have cameras, as soon as somebody attacked the cops, then it goes to a whole nother narrative.
You got to understand, and a part of what our job is as people who are educated on systems and how they work is to let folk know, the system works so that if you show any kind of threat or you threaten bodily harm, or it seems as though you're attacking law enforcement, that is the reason that they can use to lawfully kill you. It does not differentiate. We are not supposed to interfere with this. You know what I'm saying? So the second and she said it's risky. She admitted that it was risky. And so you literally could risk your life for somebody you don't know, and you don't know what they did. You don't know what happened. And so you literally gonna throw your body. And so you gotta think about it. If your son did that, he stood up for this person and he got killed, you would be like, oh my God, why would he do that? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you want to help. But at the same time, that is going to light a fire. And I would totally be against people doing that. Bum rushing the cops. I mean, I'm telling you, I could just see bodies dropping.
Well, they're actually doing it, right? In some of the protests, they're doing it. The reality of it is, though, the young lady that was 17 years old that videotaped the life being kneed out of George Floyd's body, that was a courageous act. It was a courageous act of protest. They actually tried to block the camera and told her not to do it, and she continued to do it. And so, you do have to think it through, but I thought that was extremely courageous of her. We have Melissa. Yeah, we got to get through some more questions and more comments we have for you, Cherri. Melissa says they're viewing it on social media, but more importantly, experiencing racism personally and watching those they are close to experience such unfairness and prejudice. And so that's a valid point, Cherri. You say what with regards to the experience of the trauma over and over and over again?
I think it changes. I've done multiple stories. We talked about it on Flashpoint, which is the show I host on KYW. We talked about the trauma that changes, like trauma literally changes the neurons in your brain. Now you can change it back through healing and therapy of the type that you do, Dr. RG, right? You can help people retrain their brain and things like that, and reconnect those emotions that they detached because of the trauma. At the same time, like, it's very traumatic. And these kids have created thoughts and have gravitated towards certain things and causes and belief systems because of the things that they have seen. And could you blame them? Could you blame them? For they saw Tamir Rice alone. Can you imagine being a 12-year-old boy, watching a 12-year-old boy playing with a toy, being killed, and knowing that this person, like, nobody got in any trouble for that?
Right.
Like, it makes you feel like you're worthless. It makes you feel like your life does not matter, that people can kill you with impunity. And that is the thing I think that people want to see change. And that is going to require a rewriting, a breaking of the system, and a redrafting of a drafting of a new system that is fair and doesn't give some citizens more power over other citizens and all these things. I don't know how it can be done, but I know a lot of smart people are working to create these strategies, and it's enough of us, enough people who have been educated on these systems and who are in positions who can help create those solutions.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I agree. Joseph Budd, he says, Corona, Ahmaud Arbery, Brianna, no money, not enough food, no outlets, gentrification, underfunded schools, trauma in homes, then add George Floyd murdered in broad daylight on camera. Who's really knows how people should act? People are hurting.
Yeah. Riots are definitely the language of the pain. Like, this is pain we're witnessing.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting enough, Melissa also says the conversation with change is what they are seeking. So, that speaks specifically really nicely to, we got to stay in the conversation. We have to have the courageous conversations. We can't stop talking, because these young people who are hurting are needing us to stay engaged. If they don't have the direction, you talked about creating a forum for the attorneys to talk with the young people to stay in the conversation and not only give them information, but also give them inspiration and motivation to act with in a positive way. Can you share a little bit more? When is that happening, Cherri?
What do you say?
When is that happening? The conversation that you all are having, the forum for the young people?
Well, we're trying to put that together, but tomorrow on Real Talk, we're going to talk with a panel of youth. I decided to bring them on because they were really educating me on I did not know. And I urge people, if you're over 30, I say over 30, over 35, whatever, like, put down your guard and don't say this person's young, they don't understand. Give them full respect as you would an elder in this moment. Give them full respect as though they were your elder. You sit at their feet and you listen to what they have to say with open ears, open mind, no thought, response, nothing. And I did that. And I learned so much.
Wow.
And I was blown. My mind was blown. My mind was blown. And I wonder how many times we give them that type of respect.
That's awesome. Tanya says, thank you, Cherri, for sharing the pain of Generation X. Frontline perspective is real and can help us understand their point of view.
Yes.
And Joseph says, let me move this down a little bit. Absolutely. They know more than we think.
They know a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anybody else more? Yeah. Okay. Oh, Karen James. Okay. A white friend of mine told me that his son goes out and protests. He said that he told his son that he will ball him up. He will bail him out. He says, it looks like ball, but bail him out if he needs to. Of course, I asked him what he means. He said he told his son that they need to burn it all down and he will bail him out. I clarified for him that this is not the goal and that Black people are getting blamed for those types of behaviors. I can't see the rest of it.
The
Yeah,
con-
one more. The conversation will continue. I'm grateful for the door was open so I can educate in some way. What did you thoughts about that?
Yeah, and I do think, I mean, people in the 70s did that. I mean, I wasn't there, but I'm just like, folks, we got songs about burning stuff down. I do not condone it in any way, shape, or form. But they didn't just make this up, y'all. You act like they the first generation to ever say these types of things. But we have to provide them an avenue to be able to funnel that frustration and that anger and that rage. And that's the problem. What can they do with those feelings?
Right. And so from a therapist perspective, from a therapist perspective, I'm always saying we got to channel, right? In order to heal, you have to feel, but you cannot heal what you don't reveal. And then we got to deal with it by channeling it. But if we don't have platforms for them to talk, or as you so eloquently said, if we're not willing to listen, then they're going to find another way. Michelle says, good morning, cuz that's my cousin, Cherri. She says, historically, Brown versus Board of Education overturned Plessy and Ferguson, and the Civil Rights Act of 64, Voting Rights Act of 65 was the result of Freedmen's Summer. How do we convey to young folks nonviolent movements work?
I don't think they work. And I say that because they've been involved in nonviolent movements for more than half a decade at this point. I mean, Trayvon Martin, the Black Lives Matter movement really took off after the death of Trayvon Martin, and it's been growing. And yet we still see these Black men and women being murdered or killed or mistreated and beaten and, kneeled on. And I think that is the problem. Like, folk just say, I've been protesting peacefully. We've been sending petitions. We've been leaning on these politicians, and yet and still we still see it. And the thing that would hit me was with the Ahmaud Arbery case. And my interview with Ben Crump, we talk about this. They literally had that video from day one in February. They had the same evidence for 74 days. And they would not have arrested those men and charged those men with any crime if it was not for the hell that broke loose in that part of the country. And so you wonder whether you got to raise hell in order to get anything done. And I'm not saying that raising hell needs to be, because they were able to get that accomplished without looting, okay, and burning down their own communities. But they had to raise hell. They had to go on TV. They had to call these people out. They had to show the video to the world in order to get any form of justice. And so we got to respect, at least sit down and listen to them. And I'm not talking about listening and cut them off and say, what about this? No, you don't know. Let them say the full thing. If you need to take them to a rage room where they can beat something up, let them get it all out and then say, okay, I hear you.
Because that rage is real. That rage is real. And it's going to explode or implode. So we have to have the platform for them to really process and talk about that, and then figure out ways to channel it. And there are multiple forms of protest.
And one of the things, when I was in law school, and I tell this story all the time, I remember my first year of law school taking con law, and we were all protesting at this protest in front of the Supreme Court. Some of us got arrested. We got back in the class. We had to do a bail fund to get people out. We get back in class. Our professor cusses us out. He said, y'all are not the bodies of the movement. You guys are the minds. Sit your ASSs in this seat and become brilliant so that you can be the architects of the new world we're trying to build. And so everybody has a role. Okay, everybody has a role. And so that is your role, Dr. RG, is to keep people's minds well, so that we don't go crazy in the midst of what we're dealing with. That is your role. Do your job, sis.
All day, every day.
My job is to be on the front lines and to tell the truth and to make sure this story does not go left. That's my job. And I will do it with every ounce of my spirit and my soul. But we have to, and I get all emotional because this is what we are, the minds. And so they are the bodies right now.
That's right.
We need to use our minds, and we need to listen to what they are saying. We need to help them come up with solutions.
That's right.
In these systems that we understand. That is our role. And if we're not listening, we're not doing our jobs. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel strongly about this. And I rarely tell my personal feelings about anything. But at this point, we as our generation needs to wake up. We need to listen. We need to use our minds, our connections, and help these people. Help them.
That's right.
Them. So that they don't have to do this.
That's right.
So anyway, I'm sorry.
You don't have to.
But
Listen.
I mean, it's very traumatizing to see them feel so much pain and feel helpless. But we got to help them. And they don't know what else to do. They literally do not know what else to do. And so our job is to use our minds, to use our influence, to use our connections, and to help them articulate the pain and to create strategies and solutions so that their pain stops.
That's
and
right.
that is what we must do. We
That's
if we are older, yes. We've been educated. They don't have that yet. But our job is to use what we have. Somebody lifted us up so that we could be in this position to be able to create the solutions for change.
That's right.
And that is it. And if you are not helping them, then get out the way so that people who are willing to help them will. Don't just have them sit down, listen to what they're saying. And I bet you if a lot of these mothers and fathers out here sat their young people down and said, honey, what are you feeling? And just shut up. Don't tell them how to feel. Don't tell them what to think. Don't tell them, let them scream. And then say, you know what? I hear you. What we gonna do about this? What we gonna do? And then use what we have, the connections we know, and say, look, call up the governor. I know look, Gov, these kids, let me tell you what they feel. Let me tell you what we need to do. And so that, I think that is what we need to understand as people a little bit removed, and we have to know our role. And our role is to be the minds and to help them create and craft these solutions. All they know is the pain right now. And so sometimes when you're in it, you can't see past it. And that's why the looting is happening.
That's right. As we say, thank you. First of all, just thank you for being, thank you. Don't apologize. Do not apologize. Listen, you know, in my therapy office, I got tissues everywhere. Upstairs, I got tissues. And if you can't cry when you're talking to a therapist, then you can't cry. So it's okay. Thank you.
I'm out here, nose running. But I'm just telling y'all, I've got hot, because when you cry, sometimes you get hot. I'm just telling y'all, like,
that's all good, Cherri.
I get to work. We need to get to work, and we need to help these. We need to help these young people so that they won't, because it's our fault. We need to do something. We need
on our watch.
And I'm hearing them tell me that, sis, with all due respect, what you've been doing ain't nothing changed. And I'm like,
you're right. You're right. You're right. We need to listen. We need to hear. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for the way in which you articulate and tell the stories on the ground. We need more of that. If we had more of that, perhaps the voices would not be so unheard. And we need our white brothers and sisters to align with us to fight this injustice. We're in a fight, and you're right. It's a long game. It's not the short game. Bishop Bartley, who was on the other week, he said, I'm glad that you are engaging our youth and young adults tomorrow. That's why, that's what's needed, as they know a lot and need an outlet too. They are our future. If we don't give them that platform, they're going to take it in another way. And they're going to either explode or implode. And that's what we're trying to prevent. So you and I, we're on the same page. I knew that from day one when I first met you. We are here.
And keep doing what you're doing too, Dr. RG, because I truly believe we all have a role in this. And there's a reason why you have the accolades you have. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason why you are in this position, because you need to make sure we don't go crazy. You sis, you gotta keep us from going crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody has their position, and everybody don't have to be on the front lines, because that may not be your role. And so I just want people to know that everybody has a position. Your position might be to make sure everybody eat. Your position may be to make sure all the kids, the little kids that can't go out there, are taken care of and are safe from predators. Everybody has a role in this overall battle to get change. And so I just want people to know that we are all kind of like in it together, and everybody don't have to be protesting. You know, people like,
forms of protest.
You ain't got to protest. You could do like my professor, Dr. J. Clay Smith. Your job is not to be a body. Your job is to be a mind.
That was at Howard, right?
Howard. Howard Law. That's what.
Mm-hmm.
It changes you. HBCU life will change you. But yeah, and it made me realize that your job may not be to, you may be raising the next whoever. I don't know, but we all got to play our role. And I appreciate your role, Dr. RG. I really do. And Morgan, shout out to Morgan
behind the scenes for sure.
Thank you, Cherri. Appreciate it. Showing the brother some love. Appreciate it.
Y'all, and it's a team, because people don't see, like, even with the work we do, it's like 98% of the work is done before you even show up on this thing.
That's right. That's right. Well,
thank you. Appreciate it.
Listen, we thank you. We know you got work to do on the ground level, so we're going to not keep you further. We want to make sure that everybody watches tonight, 8 o'clock on
Thursday,
8 o'clock Thursday night, Real Talk with Cherri. She's going to have the young people on. Watch her every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and just see her out there. You're out there doing your thing. Thank you so much. We love you.
Y'all have a good one.
All right. Well, guys, that it wraps it up. This is a good conversation. Yeah, let me read the few questions before we channel out. Okay. Who do you want me to go to first? Okay. So Jen says, if it wasn't for you, Mama RG, I would be absolutely miserable. I love y'all. Thank you. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you. Y'all give us life too. So it's two-way street. Deborah says, speak the truth. Megan says, get that release, girl, and don't apologize. So Cherri's off now, but she will get that message from you. Good vibes coming from the crew, connecting relationships for epic wins. Joe says, that's powerful, sis. Everybody has a role, and each role has a purpose. I love that, Joe. What Cherri said was so true. She spoke facts. We all need to play our role. That's how we win this fight. Darlene says, love it. Yes. Karen says, I feel you. I cried about 7 minutes on Monday, and I had to take yesterday off because it was so much. Take your breaks. You got to. Jen says, I've shed a lot of tears too, and it's okay to cry. Yep. Hold on a second. Joe says, right on, right on. Tanya said, nothing but love for you, both of you ladies. Thank you, Tanya. We appreciate you. Okay. Bishop Bartley, yep, everyone has a role in this fight. Let's all do our part. Even Morgan has a role. Even Morgan has a role. Morgan has a huge role for sure, dealing with me.
You always coming in there and busting me up, dude. What's that about, man? I mean, good gracious, man. You're supposed to be my boy.
Bishop Bartley.
That's what boys do. Trust me. I'll get you back.
Charlotte says, so true. We all have a role. I feel like that was a Mike moment that we all have a role in this, in that we all have to do our part. We're in this fight. It's for the long haul, not the short haul. And that our young people need us. We need to bridge this gap because it's been too long. People are hurting. Jen says, continue to play your role, Dr. R.G. Allen Wilson. I will continue to do this work because it gives me life. What happened? Something just happened. Do you see it?
See, you're on. I see you.
Whoa.
I see you.
Oh, okay. Something just went in that place of I couldn't see anything. Joe said, great conversation. Thank you, Joe. We appreciate you signing on. I think we got everybody here.
And Jen's last one. I think.
Thanks, Morgan. Morgan E.
Appreciate that, Jen. Appreciate
For
that.
all your hard work.
Thank you for all your contributions, Jen.
Yeah,
You are a consistent contributor and person that comments a lot, and we thank you for all your efforts and what you contribute to this platform. Listen, guys, we're going to continue to bring you good guests, continue to bring you thoughtful and engaging conversations. Again, this is the place for the courageous conversation that connects. The Ask Dr. RG space, quarantine space here, quarantine talks. And so we're going to come on and continue to bring you the funk. That's what we're going to continue to do. And just keeping it raw, keeping it real. If you like this engagement, invite your guests, invite your friends, tell them to log on every day, well, Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. to have an interesting, involved, and engaging conversation with Ask Dr. RG. Okay? And again, subscribe. We need you guys. Those of you who are on the YouTube platform, it's important that you hit that thumbs up icon. That really helps us out a lot, letting us know what your feelings are. It helps with the algorithms. Again, on Facebook, go over to the Messenger tab and type in subscribe. You'll then get an email asking to confirm it. That's what needs to happen. The next step is to confirm that email. Okay? So that's it, baby. Great show.
Listen, we don't do it without our crew. We don't do it without our crew. Thank you guys for joining every Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. We're here. Courageous Conversations Connect Space with our quarantine talks. Listen, we love you. Have a beautiful day on purpose from our heart to yours.